This week, a guest house with an avalanche of complaints.
The rooms have been spoilt by making them small.
It's as cheap and cheerless as you can get.
We've got a terrible breakfast, very average accommodation.
I'm not surprised if he'd put another bed up there if he could.
Poor staff attitudes, making it a very unpleasant stay.
This whole place is just vile. Horrible, horrible, horrible.
This is Blossoms, a 15-bedroom Georgian guest house in the centre of York. This historic city should be a hotel owner's dream location. With over 4 million tourists annually, there's plenty of year-round trade. But Blossoms isn't faring well. 28-year-old Richard Nuns bought Blossoms 2 years ago. But with a £500,000 mortgage, his investment is costing him his peace of mind.
When we bought it, the figures added up, but the figures adding up is one thing. The day-to-day thing of I'm spending all this money and I'm not getting any money back is very different.
The biggest problem is, for some reason, a high proportion of his guests are complaining.
Room's too small, the door locks don't work, got a terrible breakfast, everything very dated. The rooms have been spoilt by making them small. Very average accommodation, poor staff attitudes, making it a very unpleasant stay. When you look at the comments that guests leave, you'll find they're not just average, they're very, very unhappy. So there's obviously something going on that we haven't quite got a handle on.
Richard is at his wit's end.
These people, they book, then when they arrive, it wasn't what they're expecting. And unless we can overnight redecorate all the rooms, bash them down to make them twice the size, they're not going to be happy.
Enter renowned hotelier Ruth Watson. Her mission to stem the tide of complaints giving Blossoms a bad name.
Yeah, it's a very fine example of, I would say, late Georgian, early Victorian architecture. Very nice garden. Looks good.
But will the rest of the hotel get such a favourable review?
Hello there.
Oh, hi, hello. I'm Ruth. I think you're expecting me.
Hello, yes, Richard. Pleased to meet you. Pleased to meet
Pleased
you.
to meet you too. And is breakfast included in my room rate?
You've got a choice of either room only or including breakfast. The breakfast is £5 extra. That's for a full English breakfast, freshly cooked to order.
Okay.
After you.
Thank you.
Richard has reserved Blossom's largest room for Ruth.
How's this room for you? I know this is a family room, but you said you wanted a large room, didn't you?
I'm slightly dismayed by the number of beds. Have I got company? Is this what you... Are all the rooms like this with lots of beds?
Not at all, no. We've got 2 rooms that are big like this, 2 slightly smaller.
And because I'm going to be absolutely honest with you, just walking in and seeing this amount of beds, even though they're fairly neat and tidy, but it's slightly baffling, I have to say, that, and I appreciate somebody would have said, I want a room to sleep 6,
yes,
but I
sure.
Immediately think kind of youth hosteling and what have you, rather than guest house. How many people do you sleep at the most in any one time?
45.
Wow, that's a lot for one townhouse.
It's a big house.
Yeah, but that's a lot, gosh. Because I can't and won't and don't want to say to you, take a drop in income in order to be a better hotel.
Sure.
And so somehow or other we've got to make this marriage between occupancy levels which tie in with a reasonably good quality guest house. I appreciate you don't want to go the luxury route, that's fine.
Yes.
But what I'm seeing here visually is not compatible with what I would regard as a good quality guest house. Do you see what I mean? So
Right.
It's like, how do we get that level of money out of people that you need, because you certainly don't want to drop your income. Okay,
Anything you need, just give me a
thanks,
shout.
Richard. Yeah, all right,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Richard, thank you.
The hotel may be busy, but such basic rooms could threaten the business in the long run.
Very nice young man, obviously very together, especially on the business side, which is great. I think this is going to be something of a task, because how do we affect a change in the quality without actually taking out an enormous number of bed nights? It's a little problem for me. I mean, this just fills me with horror because I feel like I'm in a dormitory. But something to tackle.
Richard's fallen into a rut by thinking that piling in guests is the only route to profit. To understand what's really going on, Ruth needs to look around.
God. I'm just flabbergasted. Every bit of furniture is either from a jumble sale or the cheapest furniture warehouse you could find. What, 15 quid this unit? Who'll give me 5? No, if you want to put 6 people in a room like this, then do it. But don't moan about people complaining because, you know, I can't imagine, I say, how many people would want to be in this room? Not 2 people, never mind 6. Horrible, horrible, horrible.
If she was to say, okay, the only way forward is to have a total refurb, that would be an absolute nightmare because whilst in an ideal world I'd like to do that, I'd be very, very wary with taking on the extra finance to do that with.
Richard's reluctance to spend is already obvious to Ruth.
The owners have not spent any money on this whatsoever that I can see. It's as cheap and cheerless as you can get. I don't know what the rules about doss houses are like, but I suspect they're probably more stringent than this. It's a nightmare. I'm not often speechless, but this obsession about cramming more accommodation, more beds into rooms. Not surprised if he'd put another bed up there if he could. This whole place is just vile. It's just grim.
I'll listen to her criticisms and her comments. Obviously then I will also think about them myself.
There's just such an absence of taste in this place. You know, it's not how I'd want to spend the night, and I just don't think this is what a guest house in York should be about. I really don't.
It's the second day of Ruth's investigations at the Blossoms in York. As part of her quest to find out why so many guests are unhappy, she has spent the night in room 5.
I've had not a terribly good night, but Richard does do something very good, which is to put a guest survey form in the room. There isn't any box that says, do you think this is lovely? Would you want to come back? Does it offer more than just accommodation? And it doesn't.
The bedrooms weren't the only problem. Many guests also complained about the poor breakfast, shoddy service, and staff attitude.
Well, I'm coming down to breakfast. I think Richard's cooking, so let's see whether he can do it.
Good morning. Can I get you anything to drink?
Yes, please. What have we got to?
Tea, coffee, we've got fruit teas as well. Help yourself to juice and cereals and
Okay,
things.
so I'd like some tea, please.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Richard.
For Richard, breakfast is another opportunity to keep costs at a minimum.
I was going to get some orange juice, but it's quite obviously not even fresh, fake orange juice. It's out of some kind of carton and ambient and looks, you know, that heavily pasteurised stuff. So I'm not going to have orange juice.
There you go.
Thank you. Tell
yes.
me, Richard, about your orange juice, because it doesn't look very prepossessing. Are we looking at freshly so-called squeezed in the cartons, or are we looking at long life ambient orange juice?
Long life orange juice.
Yes. Quite old-fashioned thing to do nowadays, you know.
Cost. If you show me somewhere where I can get
Cost.
fresh orange juice for 80p a litre, then I'll be delighted to use it.
I know. I understand that cost is very important to you. We
What
will
can I
talk.
get? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, what can I get for you in the way of cooked breakfast? Everything?
Yeah, the full Monty.
Yeah.
Yes.
What would you
no,
like? How would
not
you like your
baked
egg?
beans though. I
No
don't
beans.
like-
Okay.
no.
And fried egg poached or scrambled?
Yeah, fried egg, please.
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Ruth's complaining about the orange juice already, just by looking at it without tasting it. That's fair enough. Again, I shall wait to see what she thinks about the breakfast. Based on the quality of establishments that she's used to, probably she won't like the breakfast, but we shall see.
Hello. Did you cook this or did Richard cook it?
Richard did today.
Ah, right. Okay. Thank you very much. The mushroom's a bit dried up. I don't think there's been any butter anywhere near them. Sausage is cheap. It's like eating slightly spicy herbed breadcrumbs. Really, really cheap. The egg is pretty nicely cooked. It's quite a little bit crispy on the bottom, although I quite like that. But the yolk is really nice and creamy, so that's good. I think you could have a far worse breakfast than this one. In this particular case, I think he's paying far too much attention to the nuts and bolts of how to make money, and nothing like enough attention to guest satisfaction and pleasure and, just a little bit of the luxuries of life.
Some of the complaints have been levelled at Blossom's staff. Ruth has already identified that Richard's manner with customers is somewhat brusque.
I'm aware that some people think my communication skills are an issue. In particular, sometimes I know that I can be very blunt. If something's cut and dried, I won't beat about the bush. I'll just say what it is. I don't especially like to waste time adding flowery language to my speech.
Working alongside him, General Assistant Cheryl.
I help out with reservations, bookings and breakfast. My shift's 8 till 2. It can be very busy, start stressing out a little bit.
Assistant Manager Michał has been working at Blossoms since arriving from Poland.
When you're dealing with customers, obviously your English is very good, far better than my Polish, but does it ever cause any problems with people not understanding you?
Rather not. In the beginning, it was 9 out of 10 people was asking what I want from them. Now it is about 5 out of 10, so I don't know.
Finally, there's new boy Dean with little experience of hotel life. All staff share duties from cooking breakfast to manning reception. Their roles are not clearly defined and there's no established rota. It's time for Ruth to confront Richard with her findings.
For me, your biggest problem is how bloody good that building looks from outside and the fact you're in York.
Okay.
And almost the minute you walk through the front door, you've gone from that wonderful Georgian architecture and you're into wood chip wallpaper and dubious colour paint and, sort of cheap chandeliers and things. My experience had not even the merest hint of luxury about it. I think we should pick one of the rooms, perhaps even the one I was in. It's got 2 fabulous windows, full length, beautiful windows, which are currently festooned in this awful array of cheap net and pink curtaining. I mean, just rot. Let's put 1 double bed in there, just 1 set of bunk beds.
Yes.
It's going to make it look far more like a nice bedroom.
Ruth also wants the staff to present a united front.
One of the things I would like to suggest that we do is there's no brand image. Cheryl wears some disgusting sort of anorak track top thing. Not only does it look shabby, but it doesn't look like you're a unified team. Looks like you come off the street and just happened to walk into the house and decided you were going to serve someone breakfast. You're as proprietor, it's fine, you can be individual. I think every other member of the team ought to wear some very nice casual, so it says, with pride, I work at Blossoms, this is my job.
Ruth's plan to turn things around is straightforward. First, Richard must improve the quality of his rooms and lower the number of permanent beds. Second, he must raise the quality of his breakfast while keeping costs low. Finally, he must address the complaints about staff. She wants staff to wear a uniform so their appearance is more appropriate. They must establish a working rota with clearly defined roles and, most importantly, a professional attitude. But after spending 24 hours at Blossoms, Ruth has identified that the real problem lies not with the hotel, but with its proprietor.
I need to ask you, why did you want to come into this business? Because you don't strike me as being someone who's terribly comfortable with people.
Sure. I originally went into the hotels when I was a student, and it was a part-time job that I found I really enjoyed.
So you actually like customers?
You sound surprised.
Well, I am slightly surprised because there's some messages that are in your guest comment things that suggest that the hospitality isn't always everything it could be. Some of them say that there's over-familiarity. Some of them say it's cool and chill. Is this because you're displaying one fashion and the others are...
I don't think so, because that's something we've looked at before. And obviously when people arrive, we try to, myself and the staff, we try to gauge what they like and what level to speak to them at.
I don't think you were at all unpleasant, don't get me wrong, or even rude. But I think that we can actually do some technical things to kind of soften up your approach, because you obviously do like people. You've told me so, I believe it. And I'm really pleased you like being in hospitality, because that was one of the biggest questions I had, is should we be doing this at all?
Motivated by his talk with Ruth, Richard tackles the issues head-on and calls a staff meeting.
He says, okay, we need a uniform, number one, so there's a standard, and also to give some sort of corporate identity. My idea would just be coloured shirts with a choice of long sleeve or short sleeve with a small inconspicuous logo there.
Yeah. I think in a way it is good to have a uniform, because it is smarter, but nothing over the top sort of like thing.
With the uniforms sorted out, Richard moves on to the thorny issue of working practice.
The other thing is to do with rotas. Okay, again, Ruth's comments were play to people's strengths, make it clear what people are supposed to be doing and when.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there were a few other specific things, but they're the main two.
So at the moment, I think we're quite higgledy-piggledy. We don't know what our main responsibility is. And I think if we have a main responsibility to work on, I think it'll be a lot better, so we understand which is our part, really.
Richard decides Cheryl should be responsible for housekeeping and Michal should run reception.
Well, he's give me responsibility of the bedrooms, so that's mainly all the housekeeping and the room cleaning and cleanness and standard of the rooms. As Michal, he's got the office work. So sit on your bum job. To be honest, I can't put it any clearer than that, really. So, what a big point giving us all these responsibilities if he's going to cut our hours down. I think that's a bit stupid, really. I think any less hours, and probably have to start looking for another job.
They both responded very well to the uniforms. They agree that it was a good idea. They're quite happy to wear them. And Michal especially is quite proud to wear his purple shirt. About the rotas and the responsibilities, everyone said, yep, good idea, we'll do this. The actions haven't quite, as of yet, spoken as loudly as the words, but that's something we just need to work on a bit.
Having dispensed with duties for the rest of the team, Richard heads out on a mission of his own, off to the local market in search of quality ingredients, instead of the low-cost frozen produce he usually serves.
In terms of the items, we might have a little play with vine tomatoes again, and also with the smaller flat mushrooms. Try it for a few weeks, see what guests think about it. So if we suddenly get another... With the sausages, we've got a massive choice between the existing frozen ones and fresh ones. The fresh ones are about double the price. They've got a much shorter shelf life, although there is a possibility of freezing to extend that. It's basically a question of, is the increased quality worth paying double the price for?
So Richard's going to try out new tomatoes, mushrooms and sausages at a higher cost. Next on the shopping list, a new decorative scheme for the bedrooms. But Richard's the first to admit he has few interior design skills.
This straight away I like the look of, but I guess that's only because it's a bit like what we've already got in room 8. Excuse me, what do you know about curtains? Greens? Yeah, from what I saw, I'd say yes, there were some things that I definitely liked. Yes, there was things I definitely didn't like. But as to what I like and what would look nice, they're possibly two different things completely.
1 month later, Ruth is back to check up on Richard's progress, and the new staff uniforms have arrived.
What did they think? Did they help choose?
Yes. There wasn't anybody who was majorly anti-uniform.
Right.
Everyone thought it was a good idea.
Yeah.
And pretty much everyone agreed on purple.
Very good. No, I think that's a really good idea. I do think it will help the team building. I know it sounds like a facile thing to say, but I do actually think it's certainly good for guests because they want to...
The other thing that came out with the staff meeting that I wasn't especially aware of is the fact of guests realising who's staff and who's guests.
Absolutely. No, I mean, absolutely. That's number one priority. They don't know. I mean, if somebody, especially on a summer's day, and you're walking around in short-sleeved shirts, I mean, you could easily be a tourist yourself.
Sure.
And so this actually says, yeah, I work here, and you can, ask me questions, and I'll give you helpful advice and blah, blah, blah. So, no,
The uniforms meet with Ruth's approval. But what about improving the cut-price breakfast?
Well,
Richard is still convinced that investing in breakfast is a waste of time, so he challenges Ruth to a blind taste test. Can she tell the difference between high and low-cost orange juice, sausages and mushrooms?
And then just a couple of minutes. I think this one so obviously looks more like a real sausage, don't you think? Instantly better. Let's try this one. I don't like that one. Plasticky and chewy, isn't it? A bit more wrinkly, but actually looks real.
That's the expensive UHT one.
So I was kind of right. So I'm pleased about it. I think it's the acidity in this that I quite like.
With the more expensive options winning hands down, Richard is simply going to have to pay more to keep the customer satisfied.
Ruth gave us some good ideas, which we are going to try. I'm personally not 100% convinced with the amount of oil used and also with the adding salt to everything. But we're going to try on a couple of weekends, early breakfast on one day, a new breakfast on another day, and see what the guests think.
Next, it's time for Richard to show Ruth the curtains and carpets he's chosen for room 5. She wanted him to go for simple, classic colours that complement the period features.
That's my nursery window fabric. There you go.
No, this is the Chinese restaurant fabric. This is not a nursery. No, I'm sorry. This is sending out for me completely the wrong. It's not just traditional. It's kind of that fusty, slightly boring. Doesn't do it for me at all, I have to say. Definitely let's start with the windows. They're such a wonderful feature. I don't think we should have net curtains, and certainly not net curtains with such a heavy embroidery in them, because again, they obscure anything out there, and you've actually got a marvellous view.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think that's, you come in the room, they're the first things you see, they are marvellous architecturally. That's where I would start. The bed, personally, I think should be where you are. There, the double bed. And then the bunk beds coming on this wall here, where they're almost tucked behind the edge of the bathroom, so they don't come out in the room. Do you see what I mean? That line keeps them back here. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, okay.
Whereas at the moment they're actually
that's a good idea.
They're really forcing their way into the room. If they're over here, they're much more
as much out of the way as bunk beds can be.
Yeah, but I do think that this idea of having fixed number of beds in the room just makes it look like a hostel.
Richard Nuns owns Blossoms in York, a 15-room guest house that's been getting dozens of complaints.
We've got a terrible breakfast, very average accommodation, poor staff attitudes, making it a very unpleasant stay.
He's at his wit's end about the guests' criticism.
These people, they book, then when they arrive, it wasn't what they're expecting, and unless we can overnight redecorate all the rooms, bash them down to make them twice the size, they're not going to be happy.
He's called on Ruth Watson, the renowned hotelier, to see if she can tackle the customers' grievances and turn Blossom's hostility into hospitality.
Hello there.
Oh, hi, hello.
There have been complaints about the staff, and Ruth thinks Richard's shyness can come across as rudeness.
So you actually like customers?
You sound surprised.
Ruth has also been trying to improve Blossom's breakfast and the hotel's decor, including the number of beds crammed into every room.
How many people do you sleep at the most in any one time?
45.
Wow!
Ruth has instructed him to lose one set of permanent bunk beds and make the most of the room's original Georgian features, especially the windows. The decor should be fresh and modern while complementing the style of the building.
I just went to had a look in the room. I opened the door about so much and then closed it again because it was an absolute nightmare. Wallpaper, paint, dust absolutely everywhere. I'm glad it's not me that's painting it. The best case scenario for the room is that it looks absolutely wonderful, still sleeps 6 people, has indestructible furniture, unstainable carpets. Everyone goes in and say, wow, this is fantastic, we must tell all our friends. The worst case scenario would be that everything looks great as soon as it's done, but within 2 weeks, this is broken, that's broken. The sort of sort of people that are using those rooms, families and groups of people, they're not really bothered that things might look nice and break easily. They're going to go clack, 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 clack. So I'm just hoping that whatever is put in there is suitably practical and hard-wearing.
And while the room is transformed, Richard undergoes a makeover of his own. His brusque manner gave Ruth cause for concern, so she's arranged for him to spend the day at a seminar in social skills.
Hello.
Hello there,
You must
Heather.
be Richard. Hello,
Yes,
I'm
nice to meet
Heather.
It should also teach him how to be more authoritative and assertive with his staff. First up, creating a good initial impression.
So I come in, and instead of turning round, I push the door behind me, and then we go forward and say, "Hello, how are you?" And you do not say, "Pleased to meet you." You say, "How do you do?
How do you do?
How do you do? How do you do?"
Good morning.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Have a seat, please. That was better. More confident, more cheerful. And sit up straight with your back to the chair. Come on, dup, dup, dup. You need a book on your head. At the moment, he seems to, want to shy away from clients, saying he only meets them a very small amount of the time. Well, maybe he ought to make sure that he does meet them for a greater amount of time. And I think this will help him develop more confidence, because if you go to a hotel, you expect to see the person in charge of it. You do not expect to have to creep round trying to find someone who just might or might not be the hotel manager. You should have some distinguishing feature that immediately says, "I am the manager stroke owner." That's it. Go forward slightly with the hand outstretched.
How do you do?
He needs to develop more of a physical presence. And that doesn't suddenly mean he's got to grow to be 6'6". You don't need to do that. But you need to know that you are making that impression on people.
Today was great fun. I learnt a few things. Obviously, rapport with the guests is very important. You can have the nicest hotel in the world, but if it doesn't have the staff that go with it, then people think it's very clinical and sterile. Charm isn't really a word in my vocabulary. I see it more as rapport with the guests and communication with the guests.
Ruth was concerned with the number of complaints about customer service. So she's arranged for John, an expert in phone manner and communications, to give the Blossoms team a crash course in speaking to the public.
Hi, nice to meet you. Hello, Dee. John, hi. Words, phrases.
Richard's somewhat curt manner can come across as cold and inhospitable. A phone call from a guest wanting to change a booking gives John a chance to see him in action.
Speaking. Okay, fine. Are you wanting to swap it for another date, or is it just a cancellation? Yes, perfect. Roughly what time do you think you'll be arriving, please? About 6ish. Okay, perfect. And also just to let you know that we only allow changes once. If it was after that, then we would enforce our cancellation policy. Okay, great. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Thank you for calling. Bye now. What?
Interesting. Any thoughts? We all had the benefit of listening in. What do you think?
The first 3/4 of the conversation I thought was really good, but it was just that end bit seemed quite sharp.
Right. From his point of view, theoretically, it's all good news, isn't it?
Yes.
You've actually done him a favour. And yet he might feel that at the end he got a final written warning. Sort of. Just because of the way it came across. I thought maybe just a little bit too loud, just at the very end there. But
Next up is Michal. John retires to another room and makes a test call to see how he deals with a customer. As English isn't Michal's first language, it's vital he's clear and precise.
What sort of rates can you do?
Give me a second, please. I'll have a look for you.
Thanks.
So, can I take the booking then?
Yes. Well, sorry, did you give me a price?
the tone of voice was nice. I could hear the smile. I could hear the smile. Some of the words hard to catch, to be fair, which is it's a nice accent.
Michal was obviously mega stressed when he was doing his phone call, so I'm not really going to pay much attention to that. I think the comments that John made to Michal about bearing things in mind to do with his accent, and listening to people clearly and making sure that he himself is understood and ways of getting around that. Hopefully Michal will take that on board, and that'll be benefit both to Michal and to the hotel.
Okay, come on through. Come on down, Michal.
So Richard's been told to soften his tone and sound more positive, while Michal needs to continue to improve his language skills and keep calm under pressure. Two weeks later, the transformation of room 5 is nearly complete, just in time for Ruth's return.
I've come back to see how Richard's getting on at Blossoms. We've left him with doing up a room to see whether we can really improve the look and feel of the place. He's got issues with breakfast and all other things like this, but the main thing that I'm worried about is, can Richard be a hotelier with all the warmth and generosity that implies? It's important to love your customer, to make them feel comfortable, to be warm. At the moment, he's very, very orderly, but he's not a natural hotelier. I want to see whether he has embraced the whole notion of hospitality.
First on the agenda, breakfast. Richard received complaints about its poor standard, so Ruth suggested he improve the quality of his ingredients. But what do the customers think?
You got the new tongs I sent you?
Indeed, yes, thank you,
Good.
very nice.
They do make a difference, don't they? Not having to faffle around. So what changes are we making to breakfast?
Okay, some of the things you suggested we've done, some of them we decided not to.
Okay, what are we doing?
Sausages have changed.
Yeah.
Juices have been upgraded.
Yeah.
Mushrooms are pretty much the same as before.
So dried up or a bit of rubbish, yeah?
Not at all, not at all. They're grilled, low-fat mushrooms.
Okay, yes, well there's no fat in a mushroom, so it's not hard to make them low-fat, actually.
Indeed.
But it is easy to dry them up. How did you fare on the cost element of all this? Because you said you've upgraded the orange, upgraded the sausage.
Sure. The sausages, we've got a reduction in price from the butcher, and we've got slightly smaller sausages.
Okay.
So we've kept the cost difference minimal, so we can absorb that.
Yeah.
And the new juices, although they're much more hassle to buy, they're actually cheaper than the other ones.
There we go. And how is anyone responding positively to these changes, or neutral? Or how's it going?
People are saying the breakfast is good, and no one's complaining.
Good.
Very good. Good quality. My husband's been tucking in every morning to cook breakfast, which he doesn't normally do at home, so it's very good.
Breakfast was very nice, yes. Especially the bacon. Bacon tastes good.
Very nice, especially the sausage and the bacon.
Yeah. The tea is nice too. Yeah.
The new breakfasts are a hit. Next, room 5. Previously home to 6 permanent beds, it didn't make the most of the period features.
So have you been very busy, Richard?
Always very busy. Always
Yeah, that's
very busy.
good. Well, that's fabulous.
Richard's original plans for the room didn't go down too well with Ruth, so what will she make of his second stab at interior design? Now it has a classical style that befits the building, and with cleverly concealed extra beds, there's more room for the guests.
So, let's see. Oh, gosh!
It's a big change, isn't it?
Oh, Richard. This is such... I mean, you can see the room now.
Indeed, yes.
I mean, before it was like some kind of YMCA bedstock room. Oh, what a difference. I love the wallpaper. Gosh, it's marvellous, isn't it? And the light, I love the blinds. Really do. I mean, you can really see the town. Look at all that lovely stuff out there that you can now see.
But the thing I like with the colour on the walls is that, like, things like the picture rail and the size of the windows and the lamp, where before they looked not nice, just by changing the colour of the walls, and now they stand out and they look really
Everything
beautiful,
stands out. You can see it's actually, you know, at least half of a fantastic room. For me, the real... Well, there's a lot of things, but I love the fact you can see this is a Georgian building, you know, with the windows
absolutely.
and the shutter things underneath and the architrave and all that. It just looks like a fine room now. And the fact that 2 people could sleep in here without feeling particularly offended by that, 4 people, you know, with their children or whatever, I mean, happy as Larry in here now, because you're not thinking, when are the other 2 bastards going to turn up? Are you? I mean, it's wonderful. So these beds have got this wonderful facility to pull out on either
Yes,
side.
that's right. It's those strong wheels, and they're also
Look at
full-size
that.
beds.
Easy as kiss your hand. But I mean, the thing is, it is actually satisfying what you wanted. This still can sleep 6 people. You're not losing a single customer, which was your real worry, was if we made the rooms look nice. I mean, has this given you any confidence that you could move around the building and do a few more in this sort of vein?
Having seen this, what I'd really like to do would be to get another building that's not been a hotel before and do all the rooms to this sort of standard.
It wasn't just the rooms that needed a new look. Ruth wanted Richard to provide his staff with a uniform so customers could tell who they were and to help foster a team spirit.
I've seen all the staff wearing their purple shirts with a degree of pride. How has the whole staffing issue been going? Have you been bonding together? Have they been working hard?
Mixed. I think most people, have taken on the changes and really want to develop things to the next level, but it's not universal. Cheryl's now just doing the housekeeping.
Right, and how's she getting on with that?
Her comment to me was that she doesn't want to be cleaning rooms for the rest of her life, which is fair enough. But here, with the combination of the hours that she can work and what she's demonstrated she can do, that's the only position that I've got available for her.
Ruth's keen to find out what Cheryl thinks.
Hello, Cheryl. Hiya. You're doing a good job up there. How are you doing? Come and talk to me.
Okay.
How's this housekeeping thing going? Because you were doing part reception and now I believe that you're fully in charge of the housekeeping. Is that right?
Yes, I am now, yes. I think it's just when we're full, really, I struggle getting the rooms ready, especially in keeping on the jobs that you see me doing and things like that.
Yeah.
So
now, I know there was a question of that Richard had about your reliability and sometimes letting him down and being late and what have you. But he says you had a very good chat about this a little while ago.
Did, yeah.
And cleared the air a bit.
Yeah, we did.
So what did you feel that you got out of that conversation with Richard? I mean, was he listening to your problems? I mean...
Yeah, I think the main cost was with me starting at 8 o'clock on the morning. Now I have a little boy, so I do struggle getting up on time and getting him up on time. So 8:30 is a really good time for me now.
Yeah.
And it's worked out really well.
Time for Ruth and Richard to take stock.
Because one of the things, obviously, we've been trying to do with you is to get you, as a hotelier, to deal with crisis better and with complaints better and to feel more assured about how you deal with it and to perhaps not piss the customer off so much in the way that you're doing it. I'm really happy with the progress you've made about breakfast. I think the room looks fabulous. You did take the wind out of my sails considerably when you said that, you loved it, but you could see the downsides in terms of damage and marks and that you would have to trial it for 3 months and see how it went. I kind of thought you'd really latch onto it with huge enthusiasm.
If people, yes, they do respect the property in the rooms, they do say, yes, it is practical to have the white linen, to have the smooth walls, then yes, great. But I don't want to go in all willy-nilly, spend, I don't know, £10,000 to have another 5 or 6 rooms done straight away, just to find in 6 months' time it's money down the drain because they're all in just as bad a state again.
Right.
After weeks of effort, Blossoms has taken on a more relaxed and friendly atmosphere. But it remains to be seen whether Richard's done enough to ensure future customers don't complain. For the last 4 months, Ruth Watson has been trying to turn Blossoms in York from hostel to hotel and transform owner Richard into a real host with pride in his property.
Well, I'm about to see how Richard's getting on at Blossoms. He's got to have carried on with the makeover and somehow looking at the net curtains, I don't think that's happened. And most importantly, is he now satisfying those customers? Are they happy with what he's doing?
One major cause of customer dissatisfaction was the state and size of the rooms. 6 months ago, Laura and Daniel stayed at Blossoms for 2 nights. They were so unhappy they complained to Richard in writing about their tiny room, the tired decor, and the unfriendly staff. With so many changes since in both the hotel and its staff, Ruth has invited them back to sample the new look blossoms.
So Dan and Laura, last time you came, you didn't have a very good experience, because my understanding is that when you first came, you really were disappointed, and you let Richard know in no uncertain terms that you didn't think
pretty
it was
much. I mean, he sent me an email survey, so I filled it in and said that I wasn't particularly
So what
impressed
had
with
been the
with whole thing.
problems?
It was mainly the room. It was a bit strange and dated and cramped, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was
very small.
So once you'd seen this room and thought, did you try and avoid it as much as possible?
Yeah, we just dropped our bags off and went out and then came back, slept and then went out again in the morning.
Yeah.
But will Richard have done enough to impress them after their last terrible stay?
So any special event or just getting a couple of days away?
Ruth has arranged for them to stay in the newly refurbished room 5. It's the moment of truth for Richard. Can he win over a sceptical Daniel and Laura?
What do you think?
Very nice.
Yeah, it's
a bit of a change.
Isn't it? It's very fresh. And, I like your pattern wallpaper and that's good.
Indeed.
Yeah, lovely.
Can I get you a tea or coffee or anything now?
I think we'll just use what you've got over there on the tray, if that's all right.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thank
Well,
you.
make yourselves at home, and if you need, just give me a shout.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll take my bag
Cheers.
off and make ourselves at home, I think. Cheers.
After a night in room 5, Daniel and Laura enjoy the improved breakfast. But what's the final verdict?
Staff are more welcoming, the whole place is more welcoming, the room's a lot nicer and, yeah, big improvement all round, I think.
Richard was a bit more forthcoming than he was before, and they cleared out a little bit of the clutter. If they do up the whole hotel to the same standard as the room we stayed in, then we'd definitely come back, yeah.
Daniel and Laura can finally leave as satisfied customers, but Ruth still has some concerns about Richard's attitude to hospitality.
I want you to really care about this, and I know that you don't care about it as much as I care about it. That's just a given. But you have got a beautiful building, and I know that even within the limitations of still wanting to trade it with lots of people in lots of rooms and things, it can still look much better than it does. In terms of the refurbishment, I mean, can I go away feeling quite secure that you really have bought into the idea of making changes to the way the rooms look?
The biggest change in investment which we've made since your first visit, which maybe you haven't even picked up on so much, is that we have taken on a guy specifically to do that on a full-time basis.
Right.
So our speed is basically the speed that he's working at.
Right, but you have bought into the idea that the rooms do need to be upgraded in some way, yeah? In terms of the future, we've talked in the past about you buying another hotel and that this canvas isn't big enough for you. And as I've said time and time again, you are above anybody I've worked with, the person who is most able to control costs, who understands the business side of running a hotel, keeps everything very, very shipshape in the financial and the business structure. But where you're lacking for me is the visual eye about caring about what things look like, right? I'd like you to care more about things looking nice. And we've talked also about the customer appreciation and you feeling a bit shy with people and what have you. But you know that now, don't you? And you're making some progress, yeah?
Yeah.
Richard may not love his hotel, but he's come a long way in 5 months.
I think I've got him to see that the building needs to look as nice as customers want it to. It's a bit argy-bargy there, I'm not sure I've totally convinced him. But all in all, he runs a very nice hotel, and as long as he keeps remembering that the customer is the important thing and to embrace them both physically and metaphorically, I think he's going to be really successful.